Now, Bridget, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Colin.
Tell me about your management fees.
Now, mine at the moment, it's $232 a year, and I rang them and told them that I couldn't afford to pay it in full, and I would pay €25 a month to them.
Okay.
Which they agreed to.
Right.
They agreed to, and then a couple of weeks ago, I got this letter from debt collectors, and they demand immediate payment of the money. Now, I rang her and I said there was no way I could possibly pay it out, that the €25 a month was all that I could do, because I'm on sick pay, like my husband's on 3 day a week.
Okay. And
I said to her that was the only thing I could do, and she said no, what she wanted was €52 a month and no less.
Did you, so they're really pushing to try and get this money. But, I mean, were you able to sort of work through, the income into the house and what's going out, and basically, there you go, the money's not there?
That's it, the money isn't there. We're not even living in the house at the moment. I have the house on the market to try and sell the house.
Right.
And when you sell your house, they have to be paid in full. And I told her that, I explained that to her. I said, if the house sells, which probably it won't with the way, things are going at the moment. Yeah. But I said to her, it would be paid in full. But I said, at the moment, all I can pay is €25 a month. I said, with working out everything else. And she said, no way. She said, that will not do.
So where's she going to take it?
That's what I don't know. I rang her now again yesterday, and I said to her, I said, I can't afford to pay that much money. I said, I can still afford to send you the €25 a month. And she said, no. She said, that is not good enough. She said, we will be handing it back to the debt collectors. Have
you written to them explaining that this is exactly what you intend paying on a monthly basis?
No, I haven't.
I put it in writing.
Yes.
Because if you put it in writing, hold on to a copy, they have a copy as well. You're making a positive gesture.
Yes.
The positive gesture being that, look, I am willing to pay a certain amount. It's not that I'm refusing and sticking the two fingers up to you. I am willing, so you've got to sort of reach me. We've got to come to some sort of agreement, as everyone is doing at the moment.
Yes, yes.
And I'd say they're just pushing and pushing to see how far they can go, to see if you break, basically.
Yes, yeah. Well, when I got this letter now, I did almost break. I got very upset because I've never had one of these letters. I've always paid anything that was owed, I always paid it. And as I said, I am doing my best to pay this at the moment, but the 52, I mean, it's just impossible for me to hand it out every month.
But I know from speaking to people that if you are making a gesture, I mean, put it this way, there's a queue of people down the road that are just refusing to pay point blankly.
Yes.
Possibly because they can't, because their situation is so dire, or they're just using this as, you are making a gesture. You're ahead of the pack at this stage.
Yes.
So I would certainly have that in writing, and I'd certainly have a copy of it sent off to whoever is looking for the money. And are they giving you any leeway? Are they even speaking to you in sort of terms of, well, look, can we go somewhere with this?
No.
So they're not willing to in any way have a conversation with you and come to some agreement?
No, because that's exactly what the girl said to me yesterday when I rang her and said to her that I wasn't able to afford 52, that I would carry on with the 25. And she said, well, then we're handing it back into the hands of the debt collector.
So they're not willing to compromise? No. And have you spoken to the debt collector?
No, I haven't spoken to him yet, no. I rang them themselves to speak to them, see could they do anything for me.
And what do they say?
That's what she said, no.
Right,
she said €52 a month, or they're handing it straight back.
Well, I think there's a huge amount of financial establishments that love to have your business, Bridget, because you are actually making a gesture, and you are actually saying, you know what, I do want to pay this off. Presently, I can't, but this is what I actually can do. I can go this far with it. So, I mean, that's a ridiculous attitude to take that.
It is, indeed, yes. Now, it upset me very much yesterday when I was speaking to her, because she wasn't one bit nice about it. It was pay up or it's going back, and that's it. You know what I mean?
Okay, just hang on a second there, Bridget. We'll just bring in Luke. Luke, how are you?
Hello, hi, morning to you, afternoon.
Hi, Luke.
Just a quick thing there to a ladyship there.
It's Bridget.
Bridget, when you offer to make the payments, make sure that you send the money. Ignore what they say to you. They cannot refuse to accept your money. If they do refuse, then the debt can be written off. They must not refuse. So you ignore what they say, send them the money and keep saying it.
Yes.
They have to accept it. And remember, once they accept it, it is in a contract. They are accepting the money.
Ah, okay.
Oh.
So have you, and good point, Luke, Bridget, have you sent money in since that conversation?
Yes, not since the one yesterday. It was only yesterday I was speaking to her. I have sent 52 from the first conversation from the first letter I got from the debt collector.
Yeah.
I sent the 52 in. We had a struggle here now trying to get the 52 together.
I think what Luke is saying is just keep sending. You've made an agree as such. They haven't agreed to it, but you've made a gesture to them whereby you will send them this money each month. Yes. Luke is saying make sure you keep sending that money. If they accept it, they're accepting a level of a contract. If they don't accept it, then are you saying, Luke? Then they can be written. The debt can be written off.
Yes,
almost.
you must. They have to accept. If you're sending money and making the gesture, they are accepting the money. If they were to send the money back to you, then of course, see, a contract is only legal if it's deemed to be seen fair. And if you can afford a certain amount of money, if they say they want 52, you say, I've only got 25. Next week you might have 30.
Yes.
But whatever you say, 25, keep sending it.
Yes.
Keep sending it. You're making a contract there by sending it.
That's great, Luke. That's what I was doing in the beginning, and I had rang the girl in the office and said to her I was sending 25, and she accepted it. But you see, I don't have that in writing. I only have it over the phone.
Ringing is no good. You must send something. If you ever get hold of a fax machine, it's the best, because sometimes you're dealing with banks and they say, we don't accept fax. Once you send the fax, they accept it.
Right, yes.
Great. Thank you, Luke. That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
And sorry, Luke, also Bridget should keep a paper trail. Exactly what you're saying.
Must do it.
Even notes from when you make that phone call, when you made it, who you're talking to. Always ask who you're talking to, Bridget, on the phone.
Great.
And if they don't give you their name, make sure you mark that down in a notation as well.
Absolutely brilliant.
Luke, good advice.
Thank you very much, Luke.
Pleasure.
Okay. So that really is, you're making the gesture, Bridget. You want to pay. You do want to pay off. At the moment, it's difficult, but you are making a financial gesture. Just to make sure you keep that going in and make sure you write it down as well.
I will do.
And there is no judge in the land. In my opinion, there is no judge in the land that would actually call you in on that because you are making the gesture.
Yes.
Okay.
And
don't get yourself too worried about it.
Okay. Well, from talking to you now, I feel a lot better.
Okay, because there's blokes out there that owe 750 million, and they're still on their boats in Marbella. Okay,
quite a lot of them.
So yours isn't a huge amount. I know to you it is.
Yes.
But you're making the gesture and keep that going. All right.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, Bridget. Take care of yourself.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
See you. Bye bye. Okay, and that's the way I reckon if you're making that gesture, if you're making that financial payment, as small as it is, you are actually and if they are accepting, as Luke said, if they are accepting it on the other side, there is a level of contractual obligation from both sides there. Okay, and if you want to email us, column@rte.ie. Julianne, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for ringing the show.
No problem.
You were listening to Bridget there, who's having a little bit of difficulty with her management fees.
Yeah.
And you just want to clear up something that we were talking about, that Luke was talking about.
Yeah, basically I'm a solicitor and I deal in certain areas, but one of my specialities is debt collection and enforcement proceedings. And while it is true to say that a part payment and the acceptance of the part payment can be deemed a contract, it won't always be deemed a contract and an acceptance. But secondly, it definitely, if they reject the part payment, it definitely doesn't write off a debt. There would have to be other factors involved for it to be written off. I have been involved in cases where debts were written off, where a payment was rejected, but it was to do with completely different areas, very technical. And I would not recommend anybody stop paying and think that their debt is written off. And I just wouldn't like Bridget. She's obviously very upset as it is. I wouldn't like her to get in any further trouble or anything like that. Well,
I think the course she's taken, whereby she is sending it, even though she can only afford this amount, but she's sending it in on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Is that the way you would advise people, even though whoever you owe money to, say, no, I want €100 a month, or I'm taking you to court, and you're going, well, look, I can afford €30 and I'm going to send it to you regardless.
Yeah, I have to say, I think it's a fairly irresponsible stance to reject any type of payment and say it has to be this amount. I'm completely unwilling to negotiate. From my experience, any judge in the land, if it is true and Bridget shows her incomings and outgoings, there are certain district court forms, for example, that will have to be filled out if it does go to that. And if it is true to say that she can only afford the 25, no judge in the land is then going to enforce €56. And the other thing is if the house is for sale and there's a prospect of sale, she has to discharge those fees in full. So they really do need to engage with her and negotiate, because, these debt collectors, they're just wasting their time and their money, and they're getting money out of these management companies, and they can be very aggressive. But I would tell her not to worry, because they can only do what anybody else does, which is bring her to court, and no judge in the land is going to impose something that she cannot pay. It's just not going to happen. And
also the paper trail, as she's sending stuff in, she's making a lot of phone calls, but there's there needs to be a trail of paper as well, of her constantly sending letters in and saying, look, I want to pay, this is what I can pay.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely sending letters is the best port of call. I would send everything by registered post.
Right.
They're things that a judge can see has been sent, or that if it does come to that, and hopefully obviously it doesn't. But phone calls, unless she makes a contemporaneous note. But I think the safest way is definitely everything by registered post or certified post. Certified post, if it's a limited company, that's what's acceptable. But just to protect yourself as a layperson, I would send everything by registered post.
What about, can I bring a whole bunch of emails into court? Or I would have to get confirmation that email is record, but would I have to have that flagged confirmation that it had been received?
I mean, that's best practice. I mean, if I'm sending something by email, I would usually put a red receipt on it. But not everybody has that ability. Say, for example, Gmail doesn't have that. But an email is a record, and if it is the correct email address, an email is a perfectly acceptable thing to exhibit in court. Absolutely, it's an electronic record which has been deemed under the 2004 Act to be acceptable as an electronic communication and a communication in general.
I'm just thinking, as you said, you're specialising, solicitor specialising in debt collection.
Among other things, I've done a lot of it. Yeah.
But is that at the moment? That's probably where every file on your desk is nearly focusing on that.
Funny enough, no, well, you see, I specialise in employment law and personal injury, so you get awards, and whether they can be paid, they then go to debt collection and enforcement, and that's where I would have the experience from. But in a previous solicitor's job, I did do debt collection a lot, and went to the district court and circuit court a lot for it, and there was a lot of it. A lot of it, yeah. How do you actually deal if a debt collector is ringing you up all the time? I mean, isn't there a law about how often they're allowed to ring you even or contact you? Is there? Well, no. Debt collection agencies, it's very difficult. They are regulated, and you have to be very careful. I do find that a lot of them are very aggressive. I don't have a lot to deal with debt collectors at all, because I would be hired to do the same thing as them, and we would have a code of conduct as solicitors, and we wouldn't be allowed to behave in the way that certain debt collection companies I've heard have behaved, we would be severely reprimanded by, your employer and probably the law society. But, I'd make a note of everything with debt collection companies if there are problems, because a judge will reprimand it. If it does come before the district court and they're found to be heavy-handed, a judgment issues, and they will be reprimanded. Whether that does any good is another thing. But
if in Bridget's case, if she sends, I'm just wondering, I'm sure there's other cases like this. If Bridget goes and sends that €25 a month, and that's all she can afford, and the agency is saying, no, we want 52 or nothing, and they don't lodge that, or they rip up the check, or they send it back, what signal is that given out? In legal recourse, is there anything there?
No, all it means is they have point blank refused to accept her offer. Like the basics of contract law, she's making the offer, and they would have to accept that and lodge it. They would have to accept it for it to be deemed a contract between them, and basically they're rejecting her offer, and they're saying, no, we're not accepting this as a negotiation. You need to do what we're doing. But having said that, she's not accepting their €52 a month either.
Right, yes.
So they're in difficulty as well, because that could be deemed to be an unfair part of the contract. And an unfair payment plan, which that's where the judge would come into it. He'll have to set out where what the payment would be. But the legal recourse they have basically is they're going to have to issue this in I don't know how much the debt is for, but probably in the district court. It's 20 odd quid to issue the proceedings or whatever, and they probably have loads of them, and she'll appear on the day, she'll bring in her proof of whatever, but I wouldn't worry about it. That's the thing, these are not major undertakings. It's scary for anybody to be summoned to court or whatever, and they're very quick to be litigious and move these things along. That's what I would be worrying about, because it's very stressful. You know,
I think you're also dealing with people who've never ever received a debt collector's letter in their life, and it's the scare tactics inside those letters are quite. You've 10 days, or and it's like, whoa, I've never had one of these in my life. I've 10 days to sort out everything, or I'm going to jail. People do panic.
Exactly. And there are issues with that, but mostly they're not used, to do committal and that kind of thing. That's not the road that a judge is going to go down. If she has made an offer to pay, it's just absolutely ludicrous to think that
they would accept it. In legal reference as well, if Bridget makes that offer and she works out does a letter, works it out, shows exactly her income and everything, and shows that this is all I can afford to pay, she sends the letter off, they then take the money and lodge it. Has a contract been formed there, and can that go beyond or supersede other contracts? Is that like a new contract as such?
Well, it would depend on the original contract. There should really be a variation clause in the original contract, I would say. But having said that, there is case law to say that, it could be. That's certainly what I would be arguing, or any barrister would be arguing in a court, that they accepted it and so therefore varied the clause, the payment clause in the contract to accept that amount.
Yeah, I mean,
it would have to be deemed that by a judge. You can't just assume it's going to happen. And that's why I was very, when I heard somebody saying the debt is going to be written off, I just thought, God, the amount of people listening to this and don't realise how technical it can be.
I can imagine,
I used to do a lot of free legal aid work just up until recently, and a lot of people get these debt collection letters and just go into a panic, and they really don't know their rights or know what to do. And
But I think you're saying one thing is conversation, compromise, negotiate, letter trail. If you say you're going to pay 25 a month, pay 25 a month. Have that all detailed down. Every time they lodge it into their account, have that detail as well, so that in the event you're brought to the court, you have this huge paper trail, and you are showing that as their customer, I was willing to negotiate. It was they did not want to negotiate with me.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And any phone call is welcome. I would just say any phone call, write the time, the date. As you said, if they won't give a name, then detail that, and maybe just a little bit of what was said. It is a contemporaneous note. It's not as strong as having a paper trail, such as an email or a registered letter, but nonetheless, it just illustrates that you have been doing everything to engage with the company in question.
There's one thing I was always wondering. I'll ask you. You might have the answer to this, yes or no. But if they're ringing, the debt collectors are ringing me, can I say to them when I answer over the phone, they go, "Hi, this is blah 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 debt collection." Go, "Okay, one moment. I am going to record. I want you to be aware. I am going to record this phone call."
Well, I suppose if they consent to it.
If they say, well, that's okay, record away. I don't care. This is what and can you then say, well, I can use this. Can you use that phone call then because they've agreed to it? If there was a court case,
I would have. If they consent to it, one of the issues, if they don't consent to it, I think you're going to be in difficulty.
Right.
But it would really depend on the situation. But if they consent to it, then it's like having a contract in the same way,
it's like when you ring a lot of banks or financial institutes, you get that message. This conversation could be recorded to aid and help in training, blah blah blah.
Exactly, and if you don't like that, you can hang up. That's why I'm saying you let them. If they refuse that, let them hang up. They're not going to be able to engage with you then. So but I wouldn't be too heavy-handed about that, because you don't want to be seen to be not engaging with them.
No.
And if you can take a contemporaneous note of the conversation, if they won't allow you to record it, write down what's been said that was inappropriate, if it was inappropriate, or if you have a problem with something.
But they could just deny any of that, then, can't they? But that's up to the judge to decide.
Yeah, no, of course they can, but I suppose you have to have a bit of faith in the legal profession as well, that oral evidence is important, and if it's backed up with a contemporaneous note and all of the things backing up your case to show how much of an effort you've made, they're highly educated, but they're humane as well, and they will see past certain things.
Okay, good advice, Julianne. think we should nearly conscript you for the show. Thanks very much for that. And again, I think even clearing that will put Bridget even more at ease. Thanks very much for calling.
No problem. Thank you.
Take care of yourself. All right. Bye-bye. Some good advice there. 1850 or text us at 51552. Column at rt.ie will do as well.